on the slides. Thanks for joining today. This is a webinar on joiners, movers, and leavers process. I'm Amin Jaffer. I head up our Ultima Labs division at Ultima. If you haven't heard of Ultima Labs, we are the product development arm of Ultima. We are responsible for developing platforms and products that our customers can use to adopt automation more easily. So, like I said, this is all about joiner, mover, and lever. I think actually it's probably worthwhile defining what joiner, mover, lever is first. There's lots of different interpretations of it, and it sounds obvious, but I think everyone has a slightly different take on it. So actually it's best to focus on joiner and lever. So the joiner process, we see the joiner process as kind of an employee onboarding experience that involves the end-to-end process. So if you consider when a new joiner joins your organization, they've gone through the interview process, they're offered a job, that is the point where the joiner process starts for us. And that goes all the way through to that joiner being productive, being able to do their work, having all the tools and all the access that they require to be able to do their job. And a leaver process, the exact opposite of that. When a leaver is about to leave the organization, removing all access they have, access to systems, access to buildings, etc., but also the revocation of things like hardware and software as well, software licensing, which is quite important. So I just wanted to set the groundwork there in terms of joiner, mover, and leaver. Mover is a bit of an obvious one, people moving within the organization. If there's any questions along the way, feel free to stick them in the chat, either as a question or as a chat. I'll try and keep an eye on it as we go through. If I don't see it, we will definitely follow up with answers after the session. So yeah, feel free to put any questions in as we go. I'll try and address them as we go along. So I think that the big question is, actually, let me just turn my camera off. So I think the big question is, why is it important? Why is security of your joiner, mover, leaver process important, and why else would we want to have a look at this process, and what are the issues that come along with it? So I think this is a really good stat on the screen here. So organizations with a standard onboarding process experience 50% greater new hire retention. Now that's not specifically around security, but it does go to show that the joiner, mover, leaver processes aren't just about security. When employees join your organization, their view of your organization in the first few days forms the basis of their intention to stick around. And this stat is by Urban Bound. It tells a real good story about why the joiner, mover, leaver process is as important as it is. So I've been working in the automation space for probably 5 or 6 years now with robotic process automation and AI and machine learning, etc. And one of the big challenges that we see out there when it comes to the joiner, mover, leaver process is that it's a really chunky process that tends to touch every aspect of organizations. And there's some common challenges that we see across lots of customers, and again, we've been doing this for a number of years. We've had loads of conversations with customers around their JML processes, and we've been automating their processes for many years. And the typical ones that come up very often are the obvious one, which is it's complicated, it's time consuming. People have better things to do with their time than just adding new users to systems or making sure that they're removed from systems, etc. And it's actually even more challenging these days, where we have so many different applications that are either SaaS-based applications or on-prem applications, and the application sprawl is incredible compared to what it used to be. And we have hybrid environments. We have applications that are on-prem that need access, need VPNs, etc. We have applications that are in the cloud. We have SaaS, we have PaaS, we have IaaS applications, etc. And it becomes really complicated to ensure that these new users are getting access to all the right systems and actually being removed from all the right systems as well in a timely manner. And that comes to the increased security risk. So with all of these applications and all of these different access points, the risk to your data, your security, access to your organization just becomes more and more intense as people leave your organization or move around your organization. Poor user experience, we touched on this on the last slide. So where users are joining your organization, but they don't have all the resources they want or need from day one to be productive. This is very often the case. In fact, Ultima has suffered from this in the past ourselves, and it's one of the big reasons why we looked into addressing these challenges ourselves. And poor asset management, again, we touched on this. Recovering hardware and software from leavers can massively help to reduce overall cost of employees through reallocation of hardware and software, etc. So just to illustrate the typical employee lifecycle from joiner to mover to leaver, very obvious stuff, but I think it illustrates quite nicely where the pain points are on here. So we've got a joiner at the top left. They join the organization as a new employee. They're given all of the roles that they need to be able to do their jobs. They're given access to different systems. The birthright role, as we call it, is effectively the set of access that every employee in your organization would get from the outset, and then line of business roles, etc., would be layered on top. They might move within your organization. They have a role change. They have change to access. And then if they leave the organization, we need to disable their access. And what we see is the first half of this journey tends to really focus on productivity and user experience. So we want to make sure that that new joiner or a mover within your organization gets what they need to be able to do their work. And what we often find is that assets are incorrectly provisioned, or they're really late, and users don't get their laptop for several days after they've joined. But also when they move within organizations, we can cause the same problems with access to different systems and revoking access to data they shouldn't have anymore. And actually, this places another load onto your service desk, where these users are logging tickets to change their access or get access to different things, etc. So the impact on that side of it is around productivity, user experience. And as we get to the second part of this journey, it's all around data protection. So your organization's concern at that point is making sure that you're protecting your organization against movers or leavers. And if you imagine a leaver leaves your organization, if they still have access to their systems, even for a day after they've left, if they're a disgruntled user, they could cause quite a lot of damage to your reputation, but can also have an impact on your revenues as well. So again, this latter part of the journey is all around kind of making sure that access to systems is taken away, revoked as fast as possible when that user leaves the organization. So how do we address these challenges? Well, I mean, the obvious answer is automation. Sounds simple, can be a little bit less simple in practice. But automation is the key to ensuring the consistency and speed needed for the JML process. The JML process is very time sensitive, and getting those access rights changed at the right time and getting systems provisioned, etc., is key to making sure that your security posture is in the right place, so ensuring user rights to your systems are applied correctly and swiftly. You're reducing costs, by the way, by introducing automation, by taking that workload away from those employees who are currently provisioning access, giving that time back to them to do more valuable work, the common thread of automation, increased productivity, giving them access to the right systems at the right time, and rapid time to value. So getting the automation system right means that you can get it set up quickly and easily to get those processes automated. Quite often that's not the case. Quite often organizations look to implement these big automation solutions, RPA solutions that are on-prem, that have loads of infrastructure requirements, etc., require you to set up a center of excellence internally, etc. All of that takes a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of training up of employees, etc., and that can slow down the entire time to value. What we recommend in this space is getting your automation solution a simple, quick automation solution that's intuitive and easy to use in place, and automating this stuff as soon as possible. So what we have developed is a product called IConnect JML Edition. So IConnect JML Edition is made up of two components. IConnect is a product that we've had for over two years now, about 2.5 years, and it's effectively an automation platform which works in a similar way to robotic process automation. So it has all the capabilities of RPA. For those who aren't familiar with RPA, RPA allows us to interact with applications to automate them at a user interface layer. So we don't need APIs, we don't need connectors into these applications to be able to automate specific tasks. We can use the user interface in the same way that a human would to automate those applications to do what we need them to do. Now, obviously, that's not the default of what we want to use for automation. We would like to use APIs and connectors, etc., which IConnect can certainly do. But you're always going to hit systems that don't necessarily have those capabilities, the APIs, etc. And in those cases, we drop down to RPA to be able to do that. So our JML edition is specifically focused around the join and move a lever challenges, with building blocks in place, etc., to help you to easily build out that platform. So just reading through this slide here, for IT teams who need to improve the consistency and speed of your join and move lever processes, our platform is a holistic automation solution that quickly and easily automates the user lifecycle. That's pretty much IConnect JML Edition in a nutshell. So what is it? So here we see most organizations have a wide range of systems and processes which need to be considered for their join and move a lever processes. This can be things from identity integrated systems such as Dynamics, Office 365, etc., moving outwards to legacy systems, asset management systems, even bespoke tools that are developed in-house, or web portals that are often quite difficult to automate, actually, surprisingly. And then actually moving out a step further, which is things like IT procurement systems to order that kit for that new employee if you don't have any in stock, or building access systems, giving users passes to get access to the building on day one, and having that included as part of your join and move a lever processes. And what we see is traditional onboarding solutions are really good at kind of that core stuff, IAM solutions, at applications and systems that are able to be managed by IAM. And we can get to most of that core stuff using traditional onboarding solutions because they use APIs, they use connectors to get into these applications and systems and to automate what they need to automate, to add users, etc. But as we move outwards on this screen, you start to see that legacy systems, a little bit less so. Bespoke systems and apps can be a little bit more tricky. They might not have APIs, they might not be built properly to be able to leverage connectors, etc. And then we obviously have web portals, etc. And if you move even further out to IT procurement systems and building access systems, it's very unlikely that traditional onboarding solutions are able to automate those or include those as part of the join and move a lever process. And actually, the impact of that, as you see it on the bottom, is what we talked about earlier. Any gaps in your join and move a lever process that require a human to get involved to perform an action because your automation can't do it, introduces the risk of security. Humans inherently make mistakes. If humans get distracted, humans decide that they want to go for a coffee break in the middle of a task and they come back and they've forgotten what they were supposed to be doing. So this is just, where a human is in the loop, it's inherent that there's going to be a margin of error as part of that. Again, productivity and efficiency is also impacted where there are gaps in that automated process if you're not able to automate the end-to-end process. What we've created with IConnect JML Edition is a blend of RPA and the ability to use APIs, and layering on top of that what we call JML building blocks to build out these processes easily, but more importantly, to manage the processes going forward. Because what typically happens is an automated process is developed, and because the management of that process is tricky, or it takes some time, or it's just you've lost the skills in-house, or for whatever reason, that process sits as it is. And what we see is that customers actually build on top of that automated process manual processes to fill the gaps as time goes on. So the management of these solutions is really important to make sure that you're consistently automating across the board from end to end. And what we're able to do with the IConnect JML Edition is give you the flexibility and the tools to be able to automate that end-to-end process all the way through to procuring your kit, giving access to your building with passes, etc., even sending out authorization emails or getting authorization for the procurement of kit, etc. And these bespoke apps, these in-house tools, these legacy applications that don't have APIs or have really legacy connectors, we don't care because we can drop down to RPA in those cases to address those challenges. So hopefully that makes sense so far. I don't yet have any questions, so I'm hoping all of that is sinking in. It's a lot to take in, unfortunately, but hopefully I'm giving you a flavor for where we're able to help with the JML process itself. So what I'll do, just to give you a little bit more insight into how it all kind of hangs together, I'm calling it a demo, but I'm going to keep it really high level actually. And if you do want to go a little bit deeper, we're more than happy to set up a separate session with one of the guys in my team to take you through an in-depth demo and have a look at your systems and see how that would work for your systems. So I'm going to flip over. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is IConnect JML Edition. IConnect is a patented solution. It's cloud-based. It's a SaaS application that can be consumed directly from the cloud, but it also integrates very tightly with Microsoft PowerAutomate. Now, I don't know how many of you are currently using PowerAutomate within your organizations, but what we're seeing, and the reason we've done this, is organizations are picking up PowerAutomate to use for automation internally at a rapid pace. Again, I've been in the automation industry for 5 or 6 years, all the way through from working with Blue Prism and UiPath, etc., all the way through to looking at PowerAutomate and some of the more contemporary workflow-based solutions. DPA is what we call it. The shift has really come in the last 6 to 12 months to solutions such as PowerAutomate, because they tend to A, be lower cost, but B, they tend to be a little bit easier to adopt, much more intuitive to use. They don't require a massive amount of investment to get started. So a lot of organizations that we're talking to at the moment are either starting their automation journey and they're starting straight off with PowerAutomate, or they're looking to migrate from their existing solution, which is a traditional RPA solution, to using something like Microsoft PowerAutomate. But the reason we've integrated with PowerAutomate is because it means that we're able to give users of IConnect a familiar and intuitive user interface, but also the ability to leverage the wider Power Platform. So PowerAutomate is also part of Power Apps, Power BI, and all these other great things that Microsoft has built into the Power Platform. So it means that when you're leveraging IConnect for these types of processes, you're also able to leverage the wider Microsoft ecosystem, including their AI, including their Power BI, etc. So let me just flip over to PowerAutomate and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is standard PowerAutomate. This is me logged in. I would be able to go in, I'll be able to create a flow and do what I need to do. What we've got with the JML edition and with IConnect is direct integration with this. So I'll give you an example here. I've got a new joiner process that I kind of started off with a couple of steps just to give you a flavor for what it looks like. Within here, you would just build up your workflow with new steps as you go through. But at the beginning of this, you'll see we've got to manually trigger a flow. And in here, we can put in a bunch of variables and those will be fed down into the process. But the important part to note here is that trigger can be from any system that you have internally that's important to your business in terms of kicking off this process. So that could be your ITSM system, ServiceNow, for example. It could be your HR system, something like Workday, or it could be that you create a Power App, which are really simple to spin up, a cloud-based form that's filled out by HR when a new joiner joins your organization, and that automatically kicks off this flow. So any of those would replace that top box that you see at the top there, and that would feed the variables into these various different the steps of your process. So I'll just quickly add a new step just so you can see what it looks like. We've got IConnect JML Edition in here. You can see all of the actions that we have in our JML Edition. Again, these actions are part of our differentiator. There's no other automation platform around that does this kind of thing, where there's pre-built actions specifically for JML that you can just go in and you can pull off the shelf to add to your workflow, but also with the ability to drop down to RPA, which I will show you on the next screen. So if, for example, as part of your JML process, you're adding a user to Active Directory, you're adding them to multiple groups, and then you want to, I don't know, add them to Exchange Mailbox. So to add the Exchange Mailbox, you go in here. Again, it's a pre-built action. It has a bunch of variables in here that were defined at that top stage. We want to put in the email for the mailbox identity, and actually the same for, it's the same variable for Active Directory object, and click Save. And that's it, that step is in there. Once that's saved, you've got that built into your process now, then you can go on to do the next step, next step, next step. One thing that I should show you while we're in here is it's not just the JML actions that are available to you as part of IConnect. We have a whole host of connectors that are part of PowerAutomate that are included in this JML edition. So if you have SAP GUI, for example, you'll use that connector. That will give you direct access into building SAP GUI or adding access to SAP GUI into your JML process. You might have Java applications, mainframe, web browsers, etc. So all of those can be used as well as part of your JML process. So again, I hope that makes sense from a PowerAutomate perspective. Again, this is very much what the developers would be doing to develop your process from the outset, but also to manage your process. So again, a very simple interface to manage your process. If anything changes, if you have a new application that's added and you need to start adding users to it or removing users, you just slot them in as another box in here, and that becomes part of your workflow. So just in the scenario, just to touch on the scenario where you come across an application that doesn't fall under any of these, right? So you have a bespoke application, for example, you want to add your bespoke application to your joiner process, but your bespoke application doesn't have APIs, it doesn't have connectors. We need to start thinking about dropping down to RPA to automate that part of the process. So what we have built, and I'll flick over to a virtual machine I have here, what we've built into IConnect, into the engine, is an RPA capable engine. And to be able to use that engine, we have what we call the IConnect inspector. So again, this is for developers who are developing your processes, who need to add a bespoke system to your join and move lever process. And again, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because we can set up another session for a more detailed demo. But just to show you the inspector and what it's capable of, this allows us to inspect any application and the elements of any application. Here, what I have on the desktop here at the bottom is called the door entry tool. So this is, for example, giving our users access to our building, issuing passes, etc. And we want to give our new user access to this door entry system to add them to the door entry system. So what we do at the top here is we put in, I've pre-populated this. This is just the path to this icon that's on the desktop, and we use our inspector to run the program. That will launch the program, and here we've got the login screen. Again, we can't get to that login screen to log into it using APIs or anything else because of the type of application that it is. So instead, what we can do is use this locate element button here to allow us to start spying what's on the screen. So this gives us access to all of the elements that are within that screen that's showing up on our desktop at the moment. And all we do is simply, we want to populate the username, simply click on it with a control click, and that gives us all the information at the bottom in the inspector as to what that field is. So you can see here it says element username, gives us a whole bunch of information which you don't need to worry about right now. But what's important is we get the action here. It's pre-populated with input text because it knows that it's an input box. And from here, we can copy the action. And if we click copy action, it allows us to then copy that and paste it into PowerAutomate as another action in PowerAutomate, a building block. But we can also test it out. So if we want to test it out to make sure that we've been able to find the right box and we're able to use it, we can type in our text here and we can perform the action and it shows up in our app. So we know for sure we found the right input field and we're able to interact with it. So now we can copy that action and copy it into PowerAutomate. And by the way, we can then just go on to do all the other bits of this as well. If you wanted to do the OK button, for example, do the OK button as a press element, perform action, copy action, etc. So really simple to use the inspector, really simple to start navigating around these bespoke applications to be able to get them into your JML process if they're applications that would otherwise be impossible to get to. And again, your typical onboarding solutions that you get out there would not have this capability. They don't have RPA functionality built into them. So just one other component I quickly want to touch on is our Orchestrator. So this is a new addition to our product. This Orchestrator is effectively your management plane. So this allows you to manage the flows that are going through into your on-prem systems. This allows you to understand what's going on, if there's any failures, etc. Get some flow stats. So in here, for example, we only have one worker at the moment. Typically for JML, you'd have at least 2 workers. But here we've got 1 worker in this demo environment, and we can see that it's connected, it's live. We can put it into maintenance mode if we want to do some maintenance, and then it won't be used for live flows until you take it off maintenance mode. We can see active tasks that are going through. There's none at the moment, of course, but you can see the active tasks that are going through, but you can also see the flow stats. So you can see which flows have gone through, the last action result, whether there is success or not. We can click on details and can get some further detail as to what actions were used. Some real useful information for troubleshooting, especially more than anything else. What we are adding to this as time goes on is we've got a big focus on analytics, a big focus on visualizations. So we're starting to build, again, leveraging Power BI, which is part of the Power Platform. We are going to start showing you better stats on how your flows are running, the time it's taking to run each flow, what the trend analysis is of that, and then predictive analytics as to how many start joiners, movers, and leavers you're likely to have over the next few months, and whether you need to think about increasing the capacity of your workers, etc. So all of that will be coming over the next 3 or 4 months as part of this platform, and there'll be some real rich data in terms of recommendations as well on what you do with your processes based on us being able to gather anonymized data as to how people are using this platform and the best way to build out these joiner, mover, leaver processes. So hopefully that's made sense so far. I've got a question in the box that I'll quickly from James. Does IConnect have a form of OCR? We started building an OCR engine actually for a previous customer, which we have very seriously considered including as part of this. The reason we haven't done that yet is because we're using PowerAutomate, we're able to leverage Microsoft's quite advanced OCR engine, which includes AI, etc. So at the moment, for the purposes of joiner, mover, leaver for our customers, we haven't seen the need to extend Microsoft's OCR engine. However, if we do come across the need for that, we actually do have a proprietary OCR system which does leverage Microsoft's solution, but it takes it a few steps further. So absolutely on a case-by-case basis, if we come across something that becomes too difficult for the Microsoft engine, which is actually quite advanced now, we would be able to fall back to ours if needed. Another question, does the worker need a server or VDI to use the RPA functionality? Yep, very good question. So what you're seeing on the screen here is effectively a VM, and that's what you would use to either on-prem or in the cloud to run IConnect. So IConnect would run on this VM, and IConnect would then hook into other systems, whether that's directly with a client installed on it or using Citrix and RDS. And IConnect works very well on Citrix and RDS applications, by the way, which is actually part of IConnect that's patented and part of IConnect that started off the creation of IConnect was our ability to automate over Citrix and RDS. So your VM could just have Citrix client on it, and it could use Citrix to access all the systems it needs to access to automate them. So typically we recommend 2 workers. Those workers, just for clarity, those workers are just 2 VMs, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud. Just quickly finishing off, conscious of time, I didn't want to take the whole hour because I know people tend to lose concentration after about half an hour. So I'll move on from the demo. Again, if you want a further demo, more than happy to set up a call with one of my techies who can take you through at a very technical level, much more technical than I can, how it all works and what it's capable of. But just to touch on how you can get started. So we have a couple of options here. We have just the platform. So you can consume the platform as a subscription model, which I'll come on to on the next slide. The subscription to the platform includes the workers, and it includes being able to use the JML actions and building blocks, etc. This option is really good for organizations that already have PowerAutomate skills in-house, because if you have guys who know PowerAutomate, this is a doddle to pick up. It is a small upskill from PowerAutomate, but again, the customers that we've used this for that already use PowerAutomate have found this really simple to pick up for the IConnect part of it, the JML building blocks, the RPA part of it, etc. If you don't have PowerAutomate skills in-house, then I would recommend the Accelerator Pack. So the Accelerator Pack includes everything that you need to start automating your JML processes. And I've got a slide on it, actually, I'll show you in a couple of slides' time, but it includes a bunch of different things, and it's a fixed price for that Accelerator Pack. Really good for organizations to get started before and get up and running before then standing on their own feet to do the automations themselves. And then our fully managed option, it's coming soon, we're building it at the moment. This will be for organizations who don't really want to do the developmental management of their processes, they just want to get it off their plates and give it all to us to develop and manage. And we can do that management end to end. We do it for several customers already. It's coming soon because we have some definitions to do around how that's going to work with our new version of our JML platform, which is the one that you've seen today. So platform costs, we aim to be as transparent as possible about the platform costs. In fact, they're available on our website. We don't hide anything. It's made up of two things primarily, although PowerAutomate licensing is required. On top of the PowerAutomate licensing, IConnect workers, it's a fixed monthly charge. The workers are what give you the RPA functionality and all of the intelligence behind it. That's a fixed monthly charge of £200 per worker per month. Typically, we see 2 workers being enough, and the reason we say 2 is for availability, so that's kind of the minimum. Organizations with a really huge number of joiners, movers, and leavers might need 3 workers or 4 workers, but we haven't seen that yet. 2 is normally sufficient. And then the rest of it is just consumption based. So depending on how many transactions you put through that use the JML actions that you saw, that's charged at £18 per transaction. So a transaction is effectively any process that runs that have one or more of the JML actions embedded inside of it. Typically, that's just a joiner, mover, or leaver process. Sometimes people use those same actions for other kind of fringe processes to JML, but typically it's a joiner, mover, or leaver process that's charged at £18 per transaction. So that's just for the platform. The Accelerator Pack that I mentioned earlier, it's a fixed price, 10K. That includes the licensing for the 2 worker licenses that I mentioned that are £200 a month each. So that includes an annual license to those. On top of that, we include installation services. So we get our techies involved to install it and configure it for you, get it all set up and ready to go. It includes some self-led training. So we have training videos, a training portal that we give you access to that gives you a lot of the basics on how to develop these processes. We also include some technical support training. This is a instructor-led training, half a day remote, which gives you an idea of some of the support-related activities that might be involved in running your own platform. Development training, so 2 half days of development training to augment the self-led training videos. So these are really deep dive. If you go through the self-led training and there's areas that you want to know more about, such as you've got loads of Java apps, so you want to know more about Java, we can include those in the development training. And then we have what we call the development accelerator. So this is us just giving you a bank of up to 4 days of support from our consultants to develop your first process, normally your joiner process. So we're there to help you to develop that first process. 4 days is typically ample to create that process, but we wouldn't take that away and develop the process for you. We'd be working with you to develop that process for helping you to scale up and make sure that you're equipped to do your mover and leaver process and to manage them going forward. And then labs will be there available to support your first move into production for your processes. Again, fixed price, really good place to start if you're not sure how this will work with your existing developers' systems, or you don't have developers and you want to get them skilled up. This is a fixed price, really easy to consume. We can get it up and running within literally a few days, and you'll be ready to go. So that's it from me. Hopefully that's given you a really good idea as to how we can help with your join and move and leave processes. Are there any other questions? Actually, there's a couple more questions in the chat. Let me just pull those out. So one of them, what PowerAutomate licenses are needed? So yeah, that really depends on, I mean, if you have PowerAutomate licenses already, you can obviously leverage those. If you don't have PowerAutomate licenses, what we typically recommend is the per flow licensing from Microsoft. What they do is they have a minimum pack of 5 per flow licenses, and then you can add 1 flow at a time if you choose to. A pack of 5 is normally more than enough for the join and move leaver processes. In fact, you probably only need 3 of them, 1 for each joiner, mover, and leaver. I believe those are about $500 per month for the pack of 5. But we can certainly provide clarity on that. We've got a Microsoft licensing team at Ultima, so if you need some help with licensing for PowerAutomate, get in touch with us, and we can certainly advise you on which licenses are best for your specific need. One last question on here. Can I use this for non-JML processes too? Yep, very good question. So the underlying engine, IConnect, integrated with PowerAutomate, is an automation engine. Like I said, it's an RPA engine, and it can certainly be used for any business process that you have across your business in the same way as any other automation solution. So whilst the JML edition has JML specific building blocks, the wider platform can be used for any other business processes. What we tend to see is that organizations start with the JML process, they use our building blocks, they go really deep on that, get that set up, and then they start looking at other opportunities across their finance teams, HR, anywhere across their business where they could start to automate business processes or parts of business processes using the same system. And you've already paid for it, right? It's included as part of IConnect JML Edition. So actually all that's doing is adding to your ROI on top of the product. So I think that's it for questions for now. Again, if you have any other questions, more than happy for you to send them over after the webinar. I know these things sometimes pop up in your head afterwards. Really glad you were able to join me. Thank you for your time. Details are on the screen if you want to get in touch. Otherwise, visit our website. Got loads of information on there. JML Edition's on there. And we do have a free trial as well for IConnect, so you can download the free trial and give that a go yourselves if you choose to. And again, a final point, the accelerator pack, really good place to start if you're just starting out with this stuff. So again, thank you for your time.